You must go back with me to the autumn of 1827. My father had been a gentleman farmer, and I, by his express desire, had succeeded him in that same quiet occupation. Though not very willingly, for ambition urged me to higher aims.
Sancho! Go on, lad.
That's it, good lad. Who'll be a farmer, eh? It was a cold, damp, cloudy evening in October as I plodded home from the fields. I told myself my work was honest. I harmed no one. I only returned to the land what the land gave to me. But the gleam of a fire through the parlour window did more to comfort me than all these sage reflections. I was young then, remember. Only 24. I had much to learn.
I went to call on Reverend Millward this afternoon. You should have come, Gilbert. Eliza was there.
So?
Rose, Eliza Millward has not £20 to call her own. What you see in her, Gilbert, I do not know. She's an artful minx. More tea?
Yeah, thanks, Mother.
You'll never guess what she told me.
What?
There's someone up at Wildfell. Mr. Lawrence has been renting out the place for a week, and none of us knew.
Wildfell Hall?
Well, I never.
That's not all. To a single lady.
I can hardly believe it.
She's called Mrs. Graham, and she's in mourning. Not more than 25, maybe 26, but so reserved. She's barely civil, this set.
Why did we not see her at church?
She didn't come. Reverend Millward is going to visit. He's going to ask that very question.
The following Sunday, everyone wondered whether the fair unknown would come to church. I confess, I looked with interest towards the pew belonging to Wildfell Hall. And there she was, a tall, ladylike figure, dressed in black. Her hair was raven and hung in glossy ringlets. Her complexion was clear and pale. There was a slight hollowness about the cheeks and eyes, the mouth a little too thin. Just then she happened to lift her eyes and meet mine. My skin froze. I did not withdraw my gaze, neither did she. Then she seemed to remember something and turned away. I kept looking, waiting for her to find my eyes again, but she would not.
Of course we are a small neighbourhood, Mrs. Graham. More like a family. You'll find there are no secrets here. You have met my daughter?
Eliza. Mrs. Graham.
Mrs. Graham, I shall be hosting a small party at the farm. Would you join us? Everyone will be there.
I'm sorry, I have no courage, Mrs. Markham. And I don't go to parties.
May I introduce my son, Gilbert?
Good morning.
Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Graham.
Well, I call that plain rude.
The following Tuesday, I was out with my gun. Finding nothing but carrion crow in the wooded valleys, I climbed the steep hill towards Wildfell. It is a desolate place.
Sancho! Go on, lad, come here. Come on!
An Elizabethan mansion, built of dark grey stone, shielded only from the war of wind by a group of Scotch firs, looking as stern as the hall itself. I crept closer. In one wing only, the broken windows and roof had been repaired. A thin wreath of smoke curled from a chimney. I stood, watching, half thinking of the fair young hermit inside those dark walls, when I heard a rustling from a tree close by.
Psst. Hey, Dougie! Hey, Dougie!
It was a child, a boy no more than 5 years old. He climbed higher, slipped his footing and fell suddenly.
Help! Help!
He was caught, hanging by his clothes in the scraggy branches. I dropped my gun and ran.
Mama!
Oh, no, it's all right, I've got you.
Give me that child!
I wasn't hurting him. He was caught in a tree.
He's mine.
Well, he could have hung. No one told me he had a son.
I beg your pardon. I thought...
What? You thought I'd kidnapped him?
I didn't know. You mustn't run off, haven't I told you? You must stay where I can see you.
Allow me to introduce myself.
I know who you are. Good morning, Mr. Markham. Come on.
I repaired to the vicarage to soothe my ruffled temper with the sweet company of Eliza Millward.
Have you heard about Mrs. Graham? She has a child and none of us knew it. Who can she be, Gilbert?
I squeezed Eliza's hand. She repaid me with one of her most bewitching glances. Two days later, the mysterious tenant of Wildfell Hall came to call.
This is a surprise. And such a walk for your boy. I wonder you didn't leave him at home.
Arthur is my only treasure. I'm his only friend. We don't like to be separated.
My dear, I call that doting. A boy shouldn't be tied to his mother's apron strings. He should learn to be ashamed.
I trust my son will never be ashamed to love his mother.
Hello again, little man.
I like your dog.
He's called Sancho. Do you want to stroke him?
He licked my hand.
He likes you.
He tickles.
Arthur,
Well, he's all right, Mrs. Graham.
come here.
Reverend Millward, another glass.
Oh, there's nothing like your home-brewed ale, Mrs. Markham.
Mrs. Graham,
Thank you. No, I will take water.
a glass for your boy.
No.
Just a drop.
You're not a Miss Nancy, are you, boy?
Mama.
It's all right. No one will make you drink it. Not here. He hates the sight of strong drink. The smell of it makes him sick. I've done all I can to make him hate it.
Well, Mrs. Graham, I thought you had more sense. Think what sort of a man you'll make him.
Not only are you making a fool of the boy, but you are despising the gifts of Providence.
At least this is one vice from which I can save him. I wish there were more.
Mrs. Graham, if you wish your son to pass honourably through the world, you cannot clear all the stones from his path. He must learn for himself to walk over them.
I shall hold his hand and clear all the stones I can. There will be plenty more that I can't. And show me this man who has the virtue to resist all temptation.
You're very complimentary about us.
I know nothing about you, Mr. Markham. I speak only of those I do know. Would you expose a girl to all temptation in order to teach her?
A girl?
A girl is different.
Why? Because she's weaker than a man. More liable to sin? I wouldn't send a girl into the world with no warning of what lay ahead of her. And, Mr. Markham, if I thought my son would grow up into what the world calls a man, I'd rather he died tomorrow. Arthur, we should go.
So soon?
You ladies will always have the last word.
Not at all. You can have as many as you like, but I'm afraid I shan't stay to hear them. Mrs. Markham. Reverend Millward.
Goodbye, Arthur.
You haven't said goodbye to Mr. Markham.
Mrs. Graham.
Mr. Markham.
She's a very singular lady. I don't know what to make of her.
And what do you make of our new neighbour?
Can't say I like her, Lawrence. But she's your tenant. What do you think?
I hardly know her.
He looked down and bit his lip. I scarcely noticed at the time, only afterwards, when I was led to recall this and other small moments of a similar nature, I began to see. But I must not rush ahead. It was my sister's idea that I should go with her to Wildfell Hall.
Just to see for ourselves how she lives.
I don't need to see how she lives.
She won't bite.
She might.
Oh, what a lonely place it is out here. How do you think she bears it?
I wasn't expecting guests today. You'll excuse me if I continue to work.
She took up her place at an easel, now and again glancing at her canvas, giving it an occasional touch of her brush. It was a view of the hall in the early morning, rising against a sky of silvery blue, faithfully caught and beautiful.
Hello, Mr. Markham.
Hello, little man.
Do you want to see my feathers?
Go on then.
But this is a picture of Wildfell.
I've nowhere else to paint.
This is a crow's one.
So why have you called it Fernley Manor in Cumberland?
Because there are people who might recognise my style and come here. I don't want that.
Don't you keep your pictures, Mrs. Graham?
I sell them.
You should visit the bay, Mrs. Graham. There are fine views of the sea from there.
Would you excuse me?
I don't know what to make of her. Look out of the window.
You look out the window.
I swear there's someone in the garden. And on the paintings, it isn't just the place name she changes. Her initials are false too, look.
This is Blackbird.
My sister picked up a canvas that had been leant against the wall. It showed a young gentleman.
Gilbert, who do you think this is?
His blue eyes almost seemed to wink, and his soft mouth was on the verge of laughter.
He looks a rogue.
It was only someone about a painting.
Mrs. Graham, would it be impertinent to ask who this is?
It would.
Rose, we should go. Goodbye, little man. Thank you for showing me your feathers.
Goodbye.
Mr. Markham, I'm sorry I offended you.
When a lady condescends to apologise, there is no keeping one's anger.
Please forgive me.
I squeezed her hand in mine, and we parted friends. The new tenant of Wildfell Hall caused gossip in our neighbourhood from the moment she arrived.
Why does she live up there? Who is her husband? Who is the father of her child? Where she come from? Why is she here?
Why is she so private?
Sometimes I saw her out on the hills with her son and a book in her hand. Sometimes she spoke with me, sometimes she didn't. The months passed and spring came.
Look, Mama, look!
Hello, little man.
I can balance on my legs, see?
So you can. You're painting, Mrs. Graham.
Well, I know that.
It's good. Will you send it to London to sell?
I'm sorry, Mr. Markham, I can't work when people watch me.
Can I have a ride on your horse, Mr. Markham?
No, Arthur.
Well, it's no trouble. You can work in peace, eh?
Please, Mama.
You mustn't go far. You mustn't be long.
Trust me. I'll look after him. Come on. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Come on, sit up. Hold the reins.
Arthur, you must say thank you to Mr. Markham.
I'll walk you home.
There's no need.
It's getting dark. You might get lost.
I can see Wildfell from here.
Do you not find it lonely?
Sometimes. But after everything else, I should be thankful.
Why? What happened?
Goodbye, Mr. Markham. Arthur, bedtime.
Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Markham.
I'd not proceeded many steps on my way homewards when I perceived the owner of the hall, Mr. Lawrence, coming towards me up the rugged lane.
Was that my new tenant?
Does it matter?
I thought you disliked her.
Well, I did. Now I don't. Are you going to visit?
Beautiful night.
Lawrence, are you in love with her?
I thought you were going to marry Eliza Millward.
Well, I've no intention of marrying Eliza. No intention of marrying Mrs. Graham either. Not that I'm aware of.
Then maybe you should leave them both alone. Go on!
Despite my friend Mr. Lawrence's warning, I continued to visit. Others continued to visit too, and to probe for the truth behind her mystery.
It amazes me how you can live out here, Mrs. Graham. Such a broken-down old house.
It suits me, Eliza. And I've Started on the garden.
Oh, the crocuses look nice.
Thank you, Rose.
Trump. You got to watch the carts.
Well, I would go stark mad. Wouldn't you, Gilbert? You might sit at these windows all day and never see a soul.
I take no pleasure in watching people pass the windows. I like to be quiet.
Was it quiet where you lived before?
With your husband?
It wasn't.
So what brought you to Wildfell?
Did you know Mr. Lawrence when you were married?
I didn't even see that.
Rose,
Yes?
you told me once about a sea view. If this weather continues, I'd like to walk there with my sketch pad.
It's too far to walk, Mrs. Graham.
My feet will do.
We should all go.
But
Rose is right. We shall take our carriage and a picnic. Mr. Lawrence will complete our party.
Much, yeah.
Poor Mrs. Graham looked dismayed, but they were determined to have her. I should add that Lawrence, on hearing she was of the party, declined to join. I have a very pleasant recollection of that walk along the white, sunny road adorned with blossoming hedges. Mrs. Graham and I walked all the way. Eliza rode in the carriage with Rose and the others, but I did not hate the trees for snatching her dear bonnet from my sight. To confess the truth, I was too happy in the company of Mrs. Graham to regret the absence of Eliza Millward. At last, the sea lay below us. Mrs. Graham looked out with a gaze that assured me she was not disappointed. She had very fine eyes. I don't know if I've told you that. Full of soul and a very dark grey. Never had she looked so lovely.
Gilbert, the picnic is ready.
We were very merry that day. Little laughter escaped her lips and few words, but her smile alone made everything else more agreeable.
if you'll excuse me, I will go and paint.
Lovely view.
Sorry?
Romantic. Where are you going, Gilbert?
You mind if I sit with you?
Where's Arthur?
With Rose.
Eliza isn't coming, is she?
Only me.
I'm glad. I'm tired of talking.
I won't talk. I'll just watch.
You know I don't like that.
Well, then I'll admire the view. She sketched in silence, but I could not help stealing a glance now and then from the splendid view at our feet to the elegant white hand that held the pencil.
Are you still there? Why don't you go and play with your friends?
Like you, I'm tired of them.
Thank you for bringing me here.
We met several times after the excursion to the bay. She seemed not averse to my company, provided I confined my conversation to abstract topics. The moment I made the slightest approach to tenderness, I was not only punished by an immediate change in her manner, but doomed to find her more cold when I next sought her company. One June night, I walked to Wildfell with my heart beating wildly. There you go.
A puppy for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Markham.
Something for you. It's Marmion by Walter Scott. You said once you'd like to read it.
But it's new.
Yeah, I sent for it from London.
I'm sorry, I can't take it.
Why? It's a gift.
And accepting it would place me under an obligation that I can't repay. You've already been too kind to Arthur.
You won't take it?
Gladly, if you'll let me pay.
I told her the exact price, and the cost of the carriage besides. I was ready to weep with disappointment.
You're offended again. If only you could understand...
Oh, no, I understand. You're afraid that if you accept the book, I shall expect more. But you're wrong. If you accept my gift, the generosity is all yours. I just want to be your friend.
You mean that?
Yes.
My friend?
Yes.
Then I'll take you at your word.
She placed her hand in mine. I had much difficulty to restrain from pressing it to my lips.
Markham.
Lawrence?
Late hour to be visiting?
I could say the same for you.
Come on.
Did you ever see such art?
A few days later, my mother hosted another of her little parties. This time, Mrs. Graham was amongst the crowd, and so was Mr. Lawrence.
Would you not say they were perfect strangers?
I don't know what you mean, Eliza.
His horse is at Wildfell twice a week.
She's his tenant.
Oh, Gilbert, how can you be so naive? Have you never observed the resemblance?
What resemblance?
Between that child of hers and... Oh, psh, she's looking.
Oh, and who?
Mr. Lawrence. People are shocked to find it here.
There's no resemblance at all. It's just vicious gossip.
Oh, you're so stern these days, Gilbert. What have I done?
Drink your tea, Eliza. Don't be so foolish. Did I not know Mrs. Graham? Had I not walked with her, talked with her? Was I not certain she was the most noble, the most adorable woman I'd ever beheld? If anyone was to blame, it was Mr. Lawrence.
Oh, Mr. Markham, I didn't see you.
Are you running away too?
Nothing wears me out like small talk. I don't know how they keep it up. I hate talking when there is nothing to be said.
Do you want me to leave you alone?
No. You're different.
My father always said a man should hope for no more than to walk honestly through the world.
Was he a farmer?
My mother thought I was capable of greater things.
And what about you? What do you think?
I find I enjoy the people my friends as much in silence as in conversation.
I don't quite believe you, but if it were true, you would exactly suit me for a companion.
I'm all you wish then, in other respects.
I saw a sudden brilliance in her eyes. How lovely she looked, with her face radiant. But instantly, a painful memory seemed to flash upon her. Her cheek paled.
No, I don't mean that.
Mrs. Graham.
Mr. Markham, I can't do with this. I like spending time with you. Your conversation pleases me more than anyone else's. But if you can't be content with me as a friend, a cold, plain friend, we must be strangers.
I am your friend. Of course I am. But why can't I be anything more? Is it because of some rash vow you've made in the past?
Something like that.
Why won't you tell me?
I must find Arthur.
What, you're not offended?
No.
We're still friends?
Of course.
I may see you again?
Yes.
When she was gone, the rest was all a blank or worse.
What's the matter? Did you hope to walk her home?
Leave me alone, Lawrence.
I must tell you that if you have designs in that quarter, you're wasting your time.
And I'll tell you what I think of your behaviour. Now the whole village is talking. The person who suffers from your infatuation is her.
Get your hand off me.
You lying hypocrite. I let him go. But I would not let him go again. Mrs. Graham, the mysterious tenant of Wildfell Hall, and I were now established friends. We called each other by first names and often spoke. I made our meetings seem as accidental as I could, yet this brotherly nonchalance was hard to sustain. I could not help but notice even she was at times unhappy with it. I could not fail to hope and wish for something more.
Where are you going, Gilbert?
To look at the farm, Rose.
Do you polish your boots to look at the farm? You're going up to Wildfell again. I wish you wouldn't. I wish you'd be more careful.
What does that mean?
Eliza Millwood is very unhappy about you. She says your visits to the hall are another proof of Mrs. Graham's depravity.
That's vile gossip.
There must be some foundation to it.
Its foundation is the wickedness of Eliza Millwood, and the fact that Mr. Lawrence insists on hanging about up there. Helen is my friend, Rose. I know her.
But you don't, Gilbert. This time last year you hadn't met her. Who was her husband? Did she even have one? You don't know anything about her.
I'm only passing.
Reverend, come inside.
Please, Gilbert, don't go.
I will just take one glass, Mrs. Markham, of your excellent ale.
Rose, pour Reverend Millwood a glass.
I've been to call on Mrs. Graham.
Have you indeed?
I thought it incumbent on me to do so.
Why?
Mrs. Graham, I said. These are terrible reports. She looked as if she had no idea what I meant. It is my duty as your pastor, I said, to tell you I consider your behaviour reprehensible.
And how did she take it?
Hardened, I fear. She turned white and drew her breath through her teeth in a most savage way. She as good as told me. My advice was thrown away upon her.
No.
Indeed. I am determined that Eliza shall not consort with her. I advise you to do the same. And as for you, young man...
As for me, sir...
Gilbert.
I should do as I choose. I had to see you. I heard what happened, Helen. There's something I have to say. You need more wood on that fire.
You ran all this way to tell me that?
No. But, well, you look cold.
This suits me well enough. It's getting late, Gilbert.
Well, you don't want me here.
If my kind neighbours get to hear about your visit, and I'm sure they will, they won't turn it to my advantage.
Well, let them say what they like. You and I know the truth. Only fools would believe those things.
I don't think Reverend Millwood a fool, and he believes it all. It's hard to be called... to be accused of things you abhor. It's very hard.
Then let me clear your name.
You'd do that? Link yourself to a woman despised and suspected by everyone else.
Helen, if that is the only thing that keeps us apart, you must... You will be mine.
It isn't. It isn't. If you knew everything, you'd be just like the others. You'd despise me. I know it.
I'd never despise you.
And yet I've wronged you.
Well, no.
I tried to think your affection was no more than brotherly.
Is yours?
I shouldn't have encouraged you.
You couldn't have encouraged me less. And if you think that in giving me friendship you've wronged me, you're mistaken. I'd rather have your friendship than the love of any woman in the world. Do you love me? What's your secret, Helen? Tell me, it can't harm you.
Meet me at midday tomorrow. Out on the moor. I will tell you everything.
To tell you all the questions, the fears, the hopes, the wild emotion that chased through my mind as I walked away would fill a book in itself. But before I was halfway home, I wondered why I was leaving, when everything I loved and needed was behind me. I turned back. A full moon shone calmly over the hall. I went closer. The fire sent a dim light from her parlour window. Closer still. The door opened. Here she came. I hid in the shadows for one more view.
You shouldn't let it worry you.
My heart split with hatred. She was not alone. She was with my friend, my rival. She was with Mr. Lawrence.
In future, Helen, I'll be more careful.
I must leave this place. I can never be happy here.
But where can you find somewhere better? So out of the way. If you go, I must come too.
Why couldn't they just leave me alone?
Wherever we are, it will be the same. People will talk. Wherever we go.
I heard no more. I saw him put his arm around her waist. I saw her rest her head on his shoulder. I sobbed in anger and despair while the moon shone, calmly and carelessly, as little affected by my pain as I was by its beauty.
Gilbert, where have you been? You're white as a sheet. What happened? Let me fetch you something. Gilbert!
Never did I endure so long and so miserable a night. And yet it was not without sleep. Towards morning my distracted thoughts shaped themselves into dreams. But waking to remember I was deceived was worse than if I had not slept at all. The morning came, and another day, and it was all the same to me. Nothing lifted or obscured my pain. Days turned into weeks. Not even summer's warmth brought comfort. She'd betrayed me, and there was nothing else.
Come on, it's Mr. Markham! Why didn't you come and see us anymore?
Show us how fast you can run, Arthur.
Whee! Mr. Markham, watch how fast I am!
I don't need to ask why you've changed. But while I can bear everyone else's hatred, yours I can't endure. Why didn't you meet me on the moor?
Because I'd found out all that you were going to tell me. And probably a trifle more besides. Can't think there was anything left.
I would have told you everything. But you're not worthy of it. I don't care what you think of me.
She turned, and so did I.
Arthur!
Yes, Mama?
Looking up a minute later, I saw her turn back, as if she were hoping or expecting that I would still be there. She looked not angry, but full of despair. I pretended to see nothing. She rushed away. I knew her now for what she was. I never wanted to see her or him again.
Wait! Leave me alone, Lawrence.
I need to talk to you.
Yeah, just get away from me, please.
Why do you take it out on me because she turned you away? I warned you. I tried, but you wouldn't listen.
I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I didn't even do that, for swift and sudden as a flash of lightning, I had brought my whip down on his head. I watched a moment, as his face paled before he reeled in his saddle and fell to the ground.
Lawrence.
The handkerchief he held to his head was more red than white. Must have been a powerful blow.
Give me your hand.
Don't touch me!
I ought to have insisted on helping.
Get away!
But I did as he asked. Bad news flies fast.
Gilbert, there's been a terrible accident. It's Mr. Lawrence.
His horse threw him. The village is alive with it.
It was lying in the rain. No one found him for hours.
Gilbert, now where are you going?
How can you be so unconcerned?
It was clear then that Lawrence had not mentioned me. He would do anything to protect his love, his Mrs. Graham. I would see her one last time. I would know how much in her there was to pity, and how much there was in her to hate.
To what am I indebted for this favour, Mr. Markham?
How well do you know Mr. Lawrence?
Well enough. Why?
If you heard what's happened, you should rush straight over.
If you've come here to laugh at gossip, you can leave right now.
I wish I could. I wish I could laugh. And as for gossip, I wish it were that too. I've seen Helen. I have proof.
What have you seen? What are you talking about?
I saw you with Mr. Lawrence. The night I came to you and begged to clear your name, I heard the lot. I stood by you. I didn't believe anything the others said. I will never love anyone else. I could live another 100 years, and I'll never get over what you've done to me.
He's my brother.
What?
He is hiding me and Arthur.
Were your brother? But how? Why didn't you say?
I tried. On the moor, I was going to tell you everything.
I don't understand. Why must you hide? Why could you not say? Why can you not love me?
I don't promise that I can clear myself altogether, but I am better than you think. Here.
What's this?
Take it. Read it.
The journal?
Not here. Take it home. And Gilbert.
Yes, Helen.
Don't tell anyone.
Wild with hope, I hurried home and rushed to my room. I read her journal fast, snatching a sentence here and there.
We have just returned to Stanningley. What have I done? And what will be the end? The dreaded time has come. He is gone, as I knew he would.
Gilbert!
I'm busy, Mother.
What about something to eat?
Yeah, I'm not hungry.
And then I read it from start to finish, missing not a word. The first entry was dated 6 years ago, June 1821. She must have been barely 18.
It is the night before I leave Stanningley with my aunt and uncle for my first season in London. I know, I can feel this is the beginning of my life, and that I must record each change, so that in years to come, when I'm old like them, when I'm married and have children and everything is the same, I shall look back and remember there will never be a time like this again.
I want to warn you, Helen. I want to warn you to be careful. Not to suffer your heart to be stolen by the first foolish or unprincipled person who covets the possession of it.
I promise, Aunt, I would never marry a man I couldn't honour. Ow!
Sit still, please. There will be no lack of suitors. You can boast a good family, a pretty considerable fortune, and you have a fair share of beauty besides. Although I hope you have no cause to regret that. It is inclined to bring a great deal of trouble.
Trouble?
Beauty, like money, attracts the worst kind of men.
Have you ever been troubled in that way, Aunt?
You seem to find it funny, Helen. But matrimony is a serious thing.
At first, she was delighted with the novelty and excitement of London life. But she soon began to miss the freshness and freedom of her aunt and uncle's home at Stanningley. Her new acquaintances vexed and depressed her by turns. She could not fall in love with any of them. One night, at a ball, her patience was almost exhausted.
Of course, the country is good for shooting.
Yes, Mr. Boreham.
Unless the grass is damp. There are many dangers attendant upon damp feet. Rheumatism, for one.
Rheumatism can be a danger.
Yeah, also chilblains. Do you suffer?
From damp feet? Or chilblains? What do you mean more generally?
May I have the honour?
The stranger had whisked her to the floor before she had time to catch her breath.
You looked as if you needed rescuing.
I don't even know your name.
Mr. Huntingdon.
Thank you for rescuing me, Mr. Huntingdon.
Well, my motives were entirely selfish. I liked seeing the look on old Boreham's face as I walked you away. Besides, who would not wish to dance with the most beautiful girl in the room?
Do you always say things you shouldn't?
I do hope so.
Helen, Mr. Boreham would like to propose. I want you to consider very carefully.
But Aunt, he's ancient.
40.
He walks with a stick. I'm 18.
He is a good man. Honourable, sober, respectable.
Hate him.
This is hardly Christian.
What? I don't hate him as a man, but as a husband I do. I love him so much as a man, Aunt, that I would have him find a better wife than I.
You danced twice with Mr. Huntingdon.
I would have danced 3 times, but you called for the carriage. You know him?
Everyone knows him. Your uncle calls him Wildish.
What does Wildish mean?
It means destitute of principle and prone to every vice. I hear he's drunk away most of his father's estate and he's not yet 30. I'd have you beware.
Well, it makes no difference, Aunt. I probably won't see him again.
Helen was wrong. He called the very next morning.
Mr. Huntingdon, what a surprise.
And he called again the one after that, and again the following afternoon.
That man is beginning to feel like a rash.
Helen saw him several times, sometimes in public, sometimes at home. Each of their meetings both thrilled and bewildered her. She'd never met anyone like him.
Afternoon.
Do you always come in by the window?
Only when there is a beautiful woman inside. Oh. You paint?
Only for my pleasure.
And what is wrong with one's own pleasure? I should fall in love with the creature if I hadn't the artist standing before me. Sweet innocent. She's thinking of how faithful a wife she will be.
And perhaps how faithful a husband she will find.
You think?
You think it's impossible to find a true husband?
I might have thought so once. But now I say, give me the girl I love and her alone through summer and winter, through youth and age. Her I will be true to. Where's Papa?
I beg your pardon?
Why do you live with your aunt and uncle?
My mother died when I was born. My father was not able to bring me up.
Siblings?
One brother. I rarely see him.
You're like me. You're alone.
You don't seem very alone to me. You're always at the centre of everything. My aunt says I should beware.
And what do you say?
I don't know.
You're an angel. A daily talk with you would make me quite a saint. I adore you.
Helen?
I'm just not so keen on your aunt. Would you excuse me?
Why is the window open?
I was enjoying the fresh air.
Would that be the London fresh air? My dear, if it's fresh air you crave, we must rush back to the country.
A few days later they departed for Stanningley, and Helen saw no more of Mr. Huntingdon. I continued reading from the light of a borrowed candle. The pages were crammed. Some days she vowed to forget him. Some days she could think of no one else.
August the 25th. Mr. Huntingdon is always in my thoughts and dreams. August the 26th. I am determined that even if he loves me, I must not forget my aunt's advice. August the 27th. There is goodness in him. I know it. My aunt does not know him as I do. August the 29th. If she is right, if he is really a sinner, then isn't it my duty to save him?
Her entry for September the 1st is brief.
My uncle has invited a small number of friends for a shooting party. A certain Lord Loughborough is one, a Mr. Hargrave, and also Mr. Huntingdon. September the 20th. I hardly know what to think. Sometimes he lavishes me with compliments. But there is a new guest in our party. A dashing young woman called Annabella Wilmot. And when she is in the room, he hardly notices me. This evening, she was called to sing, and I to exhibit my drawings.
Let's have a look then. What's this? On the back?
It's nothing.
Let me see.
Don't.
Well. It's me.
It isn't.
You tried to rub it out, but it's me. Look, how many more are there?
Please.
So many. I see the backs of young ladies' drawings are far more interesting than the front.
There.
You little vixen. If you don't value me, I must find somebody that will. Well done, Annabella.
He despises me because he knows I love him. I have escaped to the library. I am so miserable I don't know how to bear it. I wish they were all gone.
Helen, what's the matter?
It's nothing to do with you.
Are you sure it's nothing to do with me? I have a secret to tell you. Were you crying because of me? I'll take your silence as a yes.
You're very arrogant.
Deny it, and I won't tell you my secret. Compared to you, Annabella Wilmot is a flaunting peony beside a rosebud gemmed with dew. I love you. I can't live without you.
You don't mean it.
I do. Marry me.
Mr. Huntingdon!
Mrs. Maxwell, don't be too severe. I have been asking your sweet niece to take me for better for worse.
We will talk of this tomorrow.
I know she is an angel, but I would sacrifice my body and soul for her happiness.
Your soul. Sacrifice your soul.
Well, I would lay down my life.
Thank you, Mr. Huntingdon, but your life will not be required.
You must plead for me, Helen.
You promised you would not love a man you could not honour.
He has a good disposition. He's kind. He wants to be better.
Better. You're a child. Have you not heard the stories?
What stories?
He has friendships with women he shouldn't. His friends are chiefly interested in the ruin of each other. They half killed Lord Loughborough before he gave up alcohol.
Then I will save Mr. Huntingdon. Can I not hate the sins but love the sinner?
I am warning you, Helen. For the last time I am warning you. This man is not kind.
But all was settled. The wedding day was set for Christmas.
And so you were to be Mrs. Huntingdon.
Yes, Annabella.
And does he love you? Does he idolise you?
I don't wish to be idolised. His love is enough.
I'm far too great a flirt to be married. Unless...
What?
Unless Lord Loughborough had Huntingdon's sweet face, or unless Huntingdon had Loughborough's sweet money. That's the man would win me.
Annabella Wilmot was to be a bridesmaid. I turned another page.
My cup of sweets is not unmingled. It is dashed with a bitterness I cannot hide from myself. Disguise it as I will.
Those two will get the start of us if we don't watch out.
Who?
Annabella Wilmot and Lord Loughborough. He thinks she loves him.
And doesn't she?
The artful minx loves nothing about him, except for his title and his pedigree and his delightful country estate.
How do you know?
She told me. She can't stand him.
Well, then you must tell Lord Loughborough.
And spoil her plans. Besides, it would break his heart.
I don't see why that's so funny.
It isn't. I'm laughing now at you, my love. Helen! Oh, don't be angry.
You laugh at other people's pain. You have no wish to help.
I will be better. But you must remember, sweet Helen, you are already an angel, whereas I am in the very early stages.
December the 18th. I am Mrs. Arthur Huntingdon.
Beyond my candle, the room was pitch, but I could not sleep. I turned the next pages of the journal, feeling nothing but fear for what lay ahead. I knew now who her husband had been, and I instinctively distrusted what lay in the pages ahead. And yet, the early weeks of their marriage passed well enough. They moved to his country estate at Grassdale, and needed no one else for company.
January the 13th, 1822. Sometimes I think my lot too happy. January the 24th. Arthur treats me with such affection, such solicitude. I feel I have never known love before.
Then it came to February.
I wish I could keep you here and never see another soul. You're perfect. There's only one little thing.
What? What have I done?
You don't love me with all your heart.
Arthur, how can you say that?
You didn't look at me once in church today. Now, I like a woman to be religious, and I think your piety one of your greatest charms, but it can be taken a little too far.
Are you asking me not to love God?
I want all of you, my angel.
By March, Huntingdon was already restless and bored. It brought out something spiteful in him, and while he assured his young wife he was only jesting, further cracks began to show. On the 25th came their first quarrel.
I want it to stop raining.
It will.
I want it to stop now. What are you reading?
Walter Scott.
He looks very dull to me.
Why don't you walk with the dogs? What's funny?
I was thinking of an old friend.
Maybe you should ask him to visit.
That would hardly be appropriate. If she knew I was married, she'd tear my eyes out.
A woman?
Well, yes.
Did you love her?
Lord, no. She was twice my age.
You're still thinking of her?
Not at all. Now I'm thinking of her husband.
She was married.
She didn't love him.
That's no excuse. And if she didn't love him, why did she marry?
She loved his money, my darling.
That's even worse.
Oh, Helen, you are so pious.
If you had told me these things before, Arthur, I would not have married you.
Helen! Why won't you let me in?
I can't. I don't want to see you till morning.
Still cross?
Coffee?
I could do with a drink.
Arthur?
It's a jest, my love. Any letters?
One from my brother.
What does he want?
To congratulate us on our marriage. Here, Dash.
You shouldn't feed it from the table. Dash, come here. Come here, I said.
Maybe you shouldn't shout.
Get here!
Was that cup meant for the dog or me?
You shouldn't have been in the way. Why do you do things that make me out to be the villain?
Arthur?
And so another door shut quietly between them. There was another day, another night apart, another breakfast where they did not speak.
I'm going to London.
London?
I'm going tomorrow.
Why?
Because my wife doesn't love me.
She would love you with all her heart if you deserved it.
What must I do? What must I do to deserve her?
If she gives you her heart, you must use it well and not pull it in pieces and laugh in her face. Because she cannot snatch it away.
Are you going to forgive me?
Are you penitent?
Heartbroken.
You won't leave me.
No, my love.
You won't go to London.
Oh, I shall still go to London. But my wife will come with me.
At first, the trip to London seemed to enliven the marriage.
10th of April. Arthur seems bent on displaying me to his friends and acquaintances. I must put aside my plain, sober dress and sparkle like a jewelled butterfly.
There followed small hints that things were not what they seemed.
15th of April. I'm fearful all the time that my ignorance about society will disappoint him.
Chance encounters.
Mrs. Huntingdon.
Annabella.
Have you heard the good news? Lord Loughborough and I are to be married. I shall be the respectable woman at last.
On May the 4th, Huntingdon delivered a fresh blow.
I don't think the London air agrees with my angel. She needs to return home.
Oh, Arthur. Can we?
I can't, my love. I have some business to attend to. I need another few days.
A few days? Then I'll stay too.
Or maybe weeks. It's lawyer business. You look pale. Remember your situation, my dearest Helen. On your health depends my future hope.
She returned to Grassdale without him. 2 months passed. In every letter he promised to be home by the end of the week, and in every letter he deceived her.
July the 5th. Why won't you come? I would beg my aunt or my brother to visit, but no one must know of my loneliness. July the 13th. Even when I wander in the ancient woods, or sit in the shadow of the ash tree by the pond, still I have no pleasure. The greater the happiness that nature puts before me, the more I lament you are not here to see it. What is it that keeps you away?
On July the 23rd, he returned. But how altered.
He lies on the sofa nearly all day long. Sometimes I read, and sometimes I talk, and sometimes only sit by him and soothe him with silent caresses. I know I am spoiling him, but this once I will forgive him.
You're crying.
No.
Why? You know that I love you.
Do you?
What more could you want?
That you would love yourself as much as I do.
Love myself? Oh, well, no. That would be hard.
I watch him sleep, sinless as a child, and my heart swells.
By September, however, Arthur was himself again.
It is the shooting season, and he has invited a party of his London friends. Mr. Hargrave, our neighbour, is amongst them, with his young sister, Esther. Lord Loughborough is also here, and so is his new wife, Annabella.
Arthur was soon drinking again.
6 more bottles!
And there was worse to come.
October the 9th. I have no one to tell, but my heart will burst if I don't write it. Our guests have been here for over 2 weeks. After dinner this evening, Annabella was singing at the piano while Arthur stood at her side. I rose and selected a new sheet of music, intending to ask her to play. When I stopped, transfixed. Annabella sat with her hand surrendered to his quiet clasp. And my husband pressed it to his lips. Arthur? On seeing me, he rushed away. Lady Loughborough did not. She stared right back, as if defying me to speak.
What do you want? Do you want me to go down on my knees? Oh, forgive me. I'll never do it again.
You're laughing. You always laugh at my pain.
It was nothing.
Nothing. To flirt with your friend's wife.
I had taken too much wine.
You often take too much wine.
Well, I'm sorry.
Are the marriage vows a jest? Is it nothing to break them?
You're breaking your marriage vows yourself. You promised to honour and obey me, and here you are, hectoring. I will not be told what to do. Not even by my wife.
So will you go on, doing what you choose until I hate you?
You'll never hate me. Will you never learn that you have nothing to fear from me? That I adore you with all my heart?
You'll do it again. You say you won't, but you will.
Please, Helen, don't be in such a passion. It's not good for you, or the baby. My angel.
Your husband was merry last night. Is he often so?
No, Annabella. And he never will be again.
Give him a lecture, did you? I don't wonder at your being angry. I'd give my husband a lesson he wouldn't forget for a lighter offence. But Loughborough will never transgress. He worships the ground I walk on.
I hope you deserve it.
We're all fallible creatures, Helen. I hope darling Huntingdon deserves your love.
A year after her marriage, Helen's feelings about her husband had changed.
December the 25th. Last Christmas, I was a wife, with a heart overflowing with bliss. Now, my bliss is sobered, though not destroyed.
She also had new concerns.
I am a mother. Little one. There, little one. You do not know me. You cannot think of me or love me yet. And yet how grateful I am for the joy that you give to me.
I shall hate that thing if you don't put it down.
He's your son. You'll love him better when you hold him. There. How could you resist?
No, take it back now, Helen. I'll drop it if you don't.
Why don't you kiss him?
I'd rather kiss his mother. Wait until it shows me some affection. Then I'll love it just as much as you.
She took comfort from this, writing,
January the 14th. The worst is surely over. We can begin again.
But I thought of the woman I had come to love, with her reticent smile and her box of paints, alone on the moor with her son. And I feared for Helen. I truly feared. When Helen Graham came to live at Wildfell Hall with her 5-year-old son, the rumours began to fly.
Why does she live up there?
Who was her husband?
Who is the father of her child?
I was her only friend until, by my own mistakes, I too began to doubt her. Entrusting me with her journal, she promised I would be proved wrong. I read all night and into the morning. By Christmas of 1823, Helen had been married 2 years, and her son was 1.
He is not a bad man. He is a man without self-restraint. He is not a bad husband. We only do not share the same ideas as to what a marriage should be.
By the following spring, he had left her again, promising it would be a few days.
April the 18th. Tears blind me while I write. He has been away weeks. I can never trust him again.
In May, a solicitous neighbour came to call.
Oh, Mr. Hargrave. I didn't see you.
Oh, spellbound. What a pleasure and comfort that little creature must be to you.
He is.
Especially when you're so much alone.
How's your sister?
Esther is another young woman who is too much alone.
I expect Huntingdon any day.
Really? I had a letter from him this morning. I wish it were one I could show.
Was he well?
As well as he deserved to be. Perhaps you're not aware that...
I'm aware of nothing, except that he isn't home. Whatever my husband's faults, I don't need to hear them from a stranger.
Mrs. Huntingdon, I'm your husband's friend. I would like to be yours.
If you're his friend, Mr. Hargrave, and if you wish to be mine, you should encourage him to return.
A few days later, Huntingdon did come.
Where's my wife?
His condition of body and mind was even worse than before.
I can't eat this. This isn't food. What have you done with the cook?
She's the same one we had before you left, Arthur.
You must have been letting her get into bad habits.
I think it's you who has changed.
Mum?
Thank you, Benson. We have finished.
Yes, Mum.
Can you stop making such a racket, man? Have you any idea how my head hurts?
Sir.
What the hell is wrong? Can't you walk? Can't you carry plates?
He couldn't help it.
I'm sorry, sir.
Never mind now, Benson. You can clear later.
Thank you, Mum.
What do you mean by taking the servant's part against me?
The carpet caught his foot. It was an accident.
Oh, so you feel sorry for him? And what about me? My nerves are racked.
I never heard you complain of your nerves before.
Why shouldn't I have nerves as well as you?
You're perfectly welcome to them, but I never complain of mine.
Oh, you never do anything to try them. You just sit at home being virtuous.
You could sit with me. You don't have to go to London. You don't have to do what you do.
Oh, I need a drink.
You're hot. You've hardly eaten all day. Please, Arthur, have no more wine.
He wouldn't listen. Whatever she did was an insult and further proof of her neglect.
I thought I wouldn't send for you tonight. I thought I'd see how long it would please you to leave me alone.
Our baby's sick.
I'm sick too.
And whose fault is that?
If you start lecturing, I'll ring the bell and order 6 bottles of wine, and by heaven, I'll drink them all. Why can't you be gentle? You were gentle to me before.
And what good did that do? What a shame it is for a strong man like you to reduce yourself to such a state.
If you knew all, my girl, you'd say what a wonder it is that I bear it so well. I've lived more in these months away than you will to the end of your days. God, now you're crying again.
Don't you know that you are a part of me? And do you think you can injure and degrade yourself and I not feel it? You have to repent, Arthur. If you go on like this, it will kill you.
This? You think this will kill me? This is nothing. The thing that's killing me, with your tears and your confounded goodness, the thing that's killing me is you.
From then on, she restrained her tears and passions as much as she could.
June the 20th. Arthur's appetite for wine has increased. It is more than an accessory to social enjoyment. It is an important source of enjoyment in itself. I fear for him. I repent, weep, pray, and feel for him. But I cannot act for him.
She enlisted support.
You told me once that you wished to be my friend.
You made it clear you did not trust me.
I was wrong, Mr. Hargrave. Please, forgive my coldness.
Mrs. Huntingdon, I can think of no greater honour than to be your friend.
He was easily persuaded that as a frequent visitor to the house, and as an old favourite of Huntingdon's, he was in a position to discourage him from the excess of his habits.
Please, don't tell Arthur that you and I have spoken.
There was certainly an improvement after this. Hargrave succeeded in bringing him from the dining room in a tolerably good condition. Her husband began to recover.
I only wish there was not a secret understanding between myself and Mr. Hargrave. But if it's wrong, surely Arthur's is the fault, not mine.
She suggested a short residence by the seaside, both for his further restoration and for the benefit of their little one. But Huntingdon would hear none of it. He began to grow restless again.
July the 2nd. Things that formerly shocked and disgusted me now seem only natural. Fool that I was to dream that I had strength and purity enough to save myself and him. Yes, poor Arthur, I still hope and pray for you.
What are you writing?
A reply to my aunt's letter. My father's very ill. It's finished now.
I've been a brute.
Have you been drinking?
I'm sorry.
You're always sorry. But you never change.
Come here. I love you.
Do you, Arthur?
Kiss me. What's wrong?
You smell of wine.
You used to love me. You loved everything about me. Have you any idea how hard it is? Always to be disapproved of.
Arthur went again. This time he left her a letter.
Called away by urgent business. Do not trouble yourself to follow. I shall be home by Friday.
August. I do not know the day. I shall not expect him. I know that with him, days signify weeks, and weeks months. The truth is, I am better off alone.
Am I interrupting?
Oh, Mr. Hargrave.
I was passing. I thought I'd inquire about the welfare of my friend.
I'm afraid I haven't heard from Huntingdon in months.
I met my newer friend. How is she?
The light is going. I should check on Arthur.
You never visit. My sister would love you to visit.
I'm afraid all my time is taken up with looking after my son. Today is the first time I have painted since I was married.
You have a skill. Shouldn't be wasted.
Thank you.
You shouldn't be wasted.
I'm sure in God's eyes I'm not.
Let me help you.
Thank you. I prefer to manage on my own, Mr. Hargrave.
When Huntingdon eventually returned in September, he was even worse than she'd seen him before. I read her pages and sighed aloud.
I am tired with his injustice, his selfishness, his hopeless depravity. And yet, perhaps, it is me who has changed.
Why are you wearing black?
My father's dead.
And?
I shall go to the funeral.
You didn't even know him.
My brother will be there.
You hardly know him either. I'm your husband. I can't spare you, my love. Not even for one day.
But you manage weeks, months without seeing me. What do you do when you go?
We have guests coming. I invited the old crowd. They arrive in a few days.
Is Lady Loughborough one of the party? Please, Arthur, let me go.
Helen, your father was a reprobate who drank himself to death. He wasn't even fit to look after you. Really, my love, anyone would think you were not sane.
September the 12th. Our guests have arrived. I cannot get over my dislike of Lady Loughborough.
Helen. Poor creature. You're in mourning.
My father.
It makes one look so dreadfully pale.
At first, Annabella used all her art to win Huntingdon's admiration, but finding him impenetrable, she became equally indifferent. This, at least, was a relief to Helen. His drinking was not.
What say you to a regular jollification?
It promises to be quite an evening. Lord Loughborough.
Ladies.
What are you doing in here?
You know I never drink, my love.
It looks so silly to be dangling after the women.
If my presence is disagreeable to you, I will relieve you of it.
He'll probably go and cry in the garden.
It would serve you right, Annabella, if Lord Loughborough were to return to his old habit. They almost killed him once.
I should not mind, my dear, if his lordship were to intoxicate himself every day. I should sooner be rid of him. Mr. Hargrave, what are those dreadful men doing?
Have they ordered more wine, Mr. Hargrave?
I fear he's fully determined to enjoy himself tonight. We need to talk. As your true friend, I need to tell you something, though it pains me. It concerns your husband.
If it causes you pain, please don't tell me. Besides, I know everything there is to know about Arthur. September the 20th. He has not alluded to this mystery since. Annabella, too, seems to regret her misconduct, and for the last few weeks she has treated her husband with more kindness than I've ever observed from her before.
Helen ends by noting a further change in her husband. He appeared to moderate his drinking so markedly he was a different man. She wrote in small letters on October the 4th.
Is this, at last, the change in him that I have longed and prayed for? Dare I hope? I think I do.
Outside, the first cracks of dawn were showing in the sky. I paced the room, unable to sit with my feelings. Why did I not share Helen's confidence? Why could I not believe the man had really changed?
October the 7th, 1824. I have reason at last to hope. I have reason to believe my husband loves me.
She had been looking out at the night sky when she overheard two of Huntingdon's friends grumbling about the change in him. They said it was down to love.
Not long afterwards, I noticed Huntingdon out there too, staring like me up at the sky. I was so light of heart, so overflowing with affection, that I ran out and sprang on him and clasped him in my arms.
Bless you, darling. I didn't see. Oh, Helen.
Did I surprise you?
What are you doing?
Your friends are unhappy with you, Arthur, but I want to thank you.
What's this?
I overheard them. They said it was love that had changed you.
Is that what they said?
I've wronged you, but it isn't too late. I love you better than I did.
You mad creature. Get inside. You're cold.
It's the most beautiful night, Arthur. I couldn't be happier.
Our guests will be missing you. I shan't be long.
I'll save you a place at my side.
She was in such a good humour that night. At dinner, she narrowly observed Huntingdon and Lady Loughborough, and neither seemed to notice the other. How wrong she'd been to doubt her husband. After dinner, she even sat down to a game of chess with Mr. Hargrave.
Where is Lady Lowborough?
She went for a walk.
And where is Huntingdon?
What do you mean?
Checkmate, Mrs. Huntingdon.
Helen flew to the garden. She had scarcely reached the place where earlier that same evening she had kissed her husband before she heard voices.
We've stayed here too long.
One more, Annabella.
I can't believe you really kissed her. Was it awful?
I had to get rid of her.
Don't you love her? Just a little.
Not a scrap.
I must go. You terrible man. Before Lowborough wakes up and notices. Same time tomorrow.
He was right in front of Helen. She could have touched him, but she couldn't move. She couldn't speak. Helen retired to the large, empty dining room where earlier she had been the life of the party.
Everything I see and hear seems to sicken my heart. How can I bear my future life?
Helen, what are you doing in the dark?
I want to talk to you.
Where have you been all evening?
Close the door.
You look like a ghost.
What does it matter to you how I look? You have no feeling for me. And from tonight, I have none for you.
What's this?
How long has it been going on? Since you came? Or longer?
What on earth do you mean?
I'd leave you if it weren't for my son. I'd leave tomorrow. I was in the garden tonight, Arthur. I saw everything.
Well?
Will you let me take my child and what remains of my fortune?
And go where?
Anywhere that is free of you.
No.
Then will you let me have the child? Without the money?
I won't let you go. I won't let the child go. You will both stay here. Do you think I want people talking?
In that case, from now on, you and I are husband and wife only in name.
Very good.
I am your child's mother. I am your housekeeper. I am nothing more.
Very good. We'll see who tires first.
Arthur, show me you are repentant, and I'll try to love you.
It's not worth it, Helen.
That night, she did not sleep. She turned to her journal, hoping for relief.
How am I going to get through the next 10 or 12 days before they go? And once they are gone, how will I get through the months and years of my life? When I think of how I have loved and forgiven and worked for him, and how cruelly he has stamped on my love and betrayed me, it is not enough to say I do not love him. I hate him.
At last, morning came.
Beautiful day, Helen. Did you sleep well?
Lady Lowborough, I want you to leave. You can have my husband if you want him, but you can't have him in my house.
My dear, I have no idea what you mean.
I enjoy a moonlight walk as much as you.
I can't give him up. I'll do anything, but not that. I love him more than you ever could. Does my husband know?
I haven't told him.
Are you going to?
I have no wish to cause him the pain I feel.
The truth is, I've rendered you a service.
again?
You know what a state Huntingdon was in. Nothing you did could make him change. But when I told him that I could not bear to see him so degrade himself, he stopped. So you'd better not drive him back to his old courses with your piousness. You'd better take care of him once I'm gone.
As the time of departure drew near, the more insolent Huntingdon and Lady Lowbury became. They did not scruple to speak with affectionate familiarity in her presence. Sometimes she even wondered if she should seek revenge, but she couldn't. She still felt she could forgive Huntingdon, if only he would repent.
How much allegiance do you owe to that man?
None, Mr. Hargrave.
You consider yourself free?
Free to do anything but offend God and my conscience.
Very right, providing your conscience be not too tender and your ideas of God too severe.
Thank heaven they will all be gone tomorrow.
Well, Helen, now it's just you and me.
It was the 3rd anniversary of her marriage when Helen entered her new phase of conjugal life. 2 persons living together in one house, as father and mother of a child, but with a mutual understanding that there was no love, no friendship and no sympathy between them. She again proposed a separation, but again he would not hear of it.
I will not have people saying my wife could not live with me.
Huntingdon abstained from the excesses of wine, but he was soon up to his old ways again.
What am I supposed to do? Stuck here with a woman with a marble heart?
When he was under the depressing influences of the after-effects, he bemoaned his sufferings and his errors, and charged them both upon her.
It's you that drives me to it. You and your frigid piety. Where's my son?
You're not in a fit state to see your son.
Arthur!
Yes, Papa?
Come and sit on my knee. You shall have a glass of wine with your father.
Don't give him wine.
I shall do whatever I like.
Give me that child.
Papa!
It's all right, my love.
Arthur want Papa! Arthur want wine! Papa!
There's my boy.
Another year passed. She seldom wrote in her journal.
December the 20th, 1825. I am weary of this life, and yet I cannot wish to leave it. I cannot wish to go and leave my darling child in this dark world alone.
And another year passed.
My husband's friends are here again, and they are determined to make a man of my son. They bring him down every evening and teach him to tipple like a man, and to swear like a man, and to have his own way like a man.
Arthur! Arthur, it's time for bed.
Go to hell, Mama! Why aren't you laughing? Make her laugh, Papa.
She can't. She never does. Do you, my love? With your purity and your cold blood. She's so above everyone else, she never laughs at anything. Who wants her? Hargrave? Anyone want my wife?
That's enough.
Mama?
Arthur, bed.
Get your hands off him, woman. He's my son.
Could I ever have imagined that I should be doomed to hear such insults and watch such scenes and stay quiet? It is too much to bear.
She began to form a plan.
This is the 5th anniversary of my wedding day, and, I trust, the last I shall spend under this roof. The world's opinion and the feelings of my friends must be alike unheeded. I shall take my son and flee to New England. I have a few jewels given to me by my aunt, which I shall sell. After that, we will live from my paintings. It will be hard, but never as hard as this.
If her husband did not notice the change in her, there was someone else who did.
I've been silent long enough. You tell me you have no allegiance to your husband. He calmly offers you to any man that will take you. Helen, let me protect you. I lay my powers at your feet, and you will accept them.
Let me go.
My darling, I will not be denied.
Listen to me. I don't like you. I have never trusted you. If I were divorced from my husband, if he were dead, I would not turn to you for help or love. There now. I hope you're satisfied.
Hargrave departed the following day, and she did not see him again. The other stayed for 3 or 4 weeks longer, but she remained apart. She continued to plan her escape.
I have gathered a little hoard of my own, and look forward to a speedy emancipation. I am fully alive to the evils that must result upon what I am going to do. But I never waver, because I never forget my son.
Mama, why are you wicked?
Who said I was wicked, love?
Papa.
Papa told you that.
He says Mama be damned.
He shouldn't.
And is Papa wicked?
He is wrong to say such things of others.
I don't want him to be wicked. I don't want him to go to hell.
January the 10th, 1827. Only let the stormy weather of this winter be abated, and some morning Mr. Huntingdon will clamour for his wife and son, when they shall be on their way to the western world.
Helen. Writing? To your aunt and your brother?
No, Arthur.
Complaining about how lonely you are?
It's nothing.
Oh, a journal. With your leave, my dear, I'll take a look.
Arthur, please. Give it back to me.
It seems very interesting, my love. Rather long, though.
It's private.
You're my wife, my sweet. There's no such thing as private. Oh, I don't think I can finish it tonight. You tend to go on.
Can I have it back?
No. May I trouble you for your keys?
What keys?
The keys to your cabinet, desk, drawers, and whatever else you possess.
You can't.
Oh, but I can. Really, Helen, you should learn to be more dignified. So, you thought you might disgrace me, did you? You thought you might run away and be a beggarly painter and support yourself. You thought you'd rob me of my son and bring him up to be a dirty Yankee tradesman. Is that what you thought? Oh, we must have a confiscation of property. Where shall we start?
Arthur, I beg you!
Would you like to show me your paintings?
She followed him to the drawing room. Her painting materials were laid together on the corner table. He soon spied them.
It's devilish cold in here.
Arthur?
Take up your paint. Give them to me.
He broke them, cast them into the fire. Pencils, brushes, varnish, paints. She saw them all consumed. The oil and turpentine hissing and roaring in a blaze up the chimney.
Canvases?
No, please.
I must say, my dear, I prefer your earlier work. You've got so dark of late.
She watched each one as it crumbled and split into the flames. She remained speechless, tearless, almost motionless, as every one of her paintings was burnt.
And no more talk of taking my son.
How dare you! How dare you!
You'll never learn to respect me.
Mama, why are your eyes red?
It's nothing, love. A cold.
Papa!
Your keys and your journal.
Please, take your boot off my hand.
I've got your jewels and your money and a few other trifles.
Papa!
1 minute, my love. I have left you a few sovereigns in your purse, which I expect to last you through the month. You will give me an account of how you spend. In future, I shall give you a small monthly allowance for your own private expenses. As for the household bills, they will be taken out of your hands.
Do you think I would try to defraud you?
It seems best to keep you out of temptation.
Mama.
It doesn't hurt, love.
You never could keep a secret, could you, Helen? Huh. It's just as well women must keep blabbing to their journals. It's just as well men know how to deal with them. Come on, boy. Let's go shooting.
Robbed of the hope that had been her secret support and comfort, Helen spent days wandering from room to room. She knew she was a slave, a prisoner. She knew there was no end to it. But this was nothing compared with her grief at being unable to save her son.
Mama, I want some damn wine.
Huntingdon left in early February, and her spirits began to revive.
March the 20th. I can breathe again and feel the return of my old energy. I no longer hope for escape. He has taken care to leave me no visible chance of that. But I am determined to make the best of things as they are.
She began to break her son of the habits he had acquired. He seldom used bad language, and she'd weaned him from the intoxicating substances his father had taught him to enjoy.
I gave him as much wine as his father gave him, but I mix it with a little tartar emetic, just enough to make him sick. I am determined to enlist all the powers of association to my service. I have seen both my father and my husband fall to it. It will not have my son.
In April, her brother, my friend, Mr. Lawrence, came to visit.
Watch how fast I am. Whee!
He looks just like you. Just around the eyes.
You flatter me, Helen.
No, I would rather he looked like the butler than my husband.
And how is your husband?
Often away.
Do you miss him when he's away?
Frederick, do you know what sort of a man Mr. Huntingdon is?
I believe I have an idea.
Have you so clear an idea that you can hear without surprise or disapproval that I would like to escape? That I need somewhere safe to hide with Arthur?
You want to leave him?
I have no choice.
Would he not consent to a separation?
He won't hear of it. He takes pleasure in keeping me against my will.
Helen, have you any idea of the risks? The scandal? And if you escape, where will you go?
America.
Helen. Do you ever think of Wildfell?
Only to remember how long ago it seems that we were children.
Go there.
To Wildfell?
It's mostly a ruin, but it's out of the way. I could make 1 or 2 rooms habitable. Say that you're my tenant. Take an assumed name. Wear mourning.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean it, Helen. If you are going to do this, you must let me help you.
In October, Huntingdon returned. He also brought someone with him.
Miss Myers, allow me to introduce, my wife.
Miss Myers?
Mrs. Huntingdon.
How dare you bring another...
You'll like her. She's very pious. Miss Myers is Arthur's new governess.
His what?
Did you not hear, my darling? Does your goodness render you deaf?
Arthur has no need of a governess.
There, you see, I disagree with you.
But I like teaching him. It's my only comfort. Since you have deprived me of everything else, you must at least leave me that. Please.
Sadly, you are unfit.
Unfit to be his mother? How?
You are too changeable. Too severe. Arthur?
Yes, Papa?
Come here. Miss Myers is a very kind lady who is going to look after you.
What about Mama?
Mama is, tired. Go upstairs with Miss Myers. That's right. Hold her hand.
Come on.
You will have nothing further to do with him. Well, isn't this merry?
Yeah. Miss Myers, what is the name of the family you worked for before?
What does it matter what they were called?
I'm interested. Miss Myers?
Mr. Huntingdon,
My glass is empty, Benson. And some for the boy.
He doesn't want it.
And some for the boy, I said.
Mama.
What's wrong with you? Drink it.
Oh, he's been sick.
Don't touch him. Get out of here.
In the next morning's post, Helen dispatched a few lines to her brother, beseeching him to prepare immediately for her arrival. She wrote too to her uncle and aunt, begging their forgiveness for what she was about to do.
October the 10th. I am content to spend my life in obscurity, devoting myself to my son and teaching him to avoid the errors of both his parents.
For 2 days she prepared for her secret departure with the utmost caution. She put Arthur to bed in her room for better security.
The whole house is still. There can be no one but me awake. I am far too anxious to close my eyes. Our boxes were all corded by Benson and quietly conveyed down the back stairs after dusk. The name on them is Mrs. Graham. In a few hours, we will be gone.
Arthur, you awake?
Mama.
We need to dress very quickly, love. That's right. Clever boy.
Where are we going?
You'll be safe now. What trembling joy it was when the little wicket closed behind us as we issued from the park. I paused for a draught of that cold, bracing air and took one last look back at the house. All was dark and still.
Mama.
Hold my hand, love.
We had left Grassdale many miles behind before the round red sun rose to welcome our deliverance. What delight it was to feel the morning sun on my face, surrounded by an unknown country, with my darling child sleeping in my arms. It was night again before we set our eyes on the dark, grim pile that is Wildfell.
Where are we?
Home, love.
I don't like it.
Come on. I was glad to climb the stone staircase and lie down in the gloomy, old-fashioned bed beside my Arthur.
Where's Papa? Is he going to fetch us?
Sleep now. We need to sleep.
In the weeks following, it seemed Mr. Huntingdon made every effort to find her. He went to her aunt several times. He also wrote to her brother.
He is willing to let you go. He's willing to settle a reasonable allowance on you. What he wants is his son.
Have you replied?
Only to say I've not heard from you, and that I'm sure that wherever you are, nothing would induce you to give up your son.
Thank you.
How are you, Helen?
Well enough. Lonely. I look forward to your visits.
We have to be careful. I'll come when I can, but it's difficult.
Come at night, when no one can see you. I'd like to go to church.
You can't. It's a small neighbourhood.
I won't stop. I won't talk. I need to pray, to ask forgiveness. I need that.
If you wish to hide from Huntingdon, you must keep away from everyone.
The sun was clear in the sky as I reached the last pages of Helen's journal.
October the 24th. Alas, my kind neighbours will not let me alone. They have ferreted me out and are bent on discovering who and what I am. November the 3rd. I have made some further acquaintance in the village. The fine gentleman and beau of the parish, at least in his own eyes, is a young...
Here it ended. The rest was torn away. I closed the journal. My adored Helen was all I wished to think her. Her character shone as bright as the sun I could not bear to look on. Of my own conduct, I could not have been more ashamed.
Gilbert! Why have you not come down?
Been busy, Rose.
Now where are you going? Oh, not to Wildfell.
I'm going to tell her the truth. I read from start to finish. Can you forgive me?
Can you forgive me? In the eyes of the world, I have done wrong.
No.
But I have reaped the bitter fruits of my error, and I shall reap them to the end.
You should have told me this. You should have told me before.
What difference would it have made? Gilbert, you must leave. Not this moment, but soon. We must never see each other again.
But I love you more than ever.
And that is exactly the reason we must part. I told myself we could see each other one last time to ask forgiveness. But here, our friendship ends. I'm still married. You must not visit any more.
Helen, that man is not your husband. He's forfeited all claim to you.
Oh, don't say these things. Don't torture me. I wish it wasn't like this, but it is.
Helen.
Please, don't.
May we not meet as friends?
You know the answer to that as well as I. Every time we see each other, the thought that this must soon end will make the meeting only more painful. Today, I just about have the power to ask you to go. Soon, I won't even have that. We shall meet in heaven.
Not as we are now.
There is perfect love in heaven.
And what of earthly love? Does that mean nothing?
Gilbert, you're still young. You should marry. I know it seems impossible, and though I can hardly wish you to forget me, it is right that you do.
You're young too, Helen. I'll wait.
I may hate him, but I cannot wish my husband dead. And if I'm young in years, I am old in sorrow. Trust me, Gilbert, in this, I know better than you.
Helen. Helen.
Please go.
Can we at least write?
You will hear of me through my brother.
I have a confused remembrance as I rushed away of Arthur running up the garden to meet me.
Mr. Markham! Mr. Markham!
And my running down the steep fields, clearing the stone fences and hedges as they came in my way, till I got completely out of sight of the old hall. I spent long hours in bitter tears with a west wind rushing through the overshadowing trees. My heart was way up the hill in that dark room where she sat desolate and alone. She, whom I knew I loved, and who I was never to see again.
What are you doing here? Have you come to finish me off?
I've come to beg your pardon, Lawrence. I misunderstood your relationship with Helen. I was wrong.
How did you find out?
She told me everything. She knew she could trust me. But you needn't disturb yourself on that count. I've seen the last of her.
You've done right. She has suffered enough already. And as for the misunderstanding between us, I'm sorry I was not more candid. You have not been very friendly of late.
And nobody can blame me more than I blame myself.
Only keep your resolution of staying away from her. And everything else between us is forgotten.
For the next 2 months, I kept my promise. Helen did not come to church or into the village, and I did not go near her house. I only knew she was still there by her brother's brief answers to my many and varied questions. How is she?
Far from happy and far from strong.
Does she mention me?
She asked if I've seen you.
What else?
Nothing else. She knows she must forget you, and I wish you would do the same. You are neither of you worthy of a broken heart. There is so much gossip about her in the village. She fears she cannot stay.
A week later, Eliza Millward came to call.
What a pleasure to find you at home, Gilbert. I so seldom see you.
I've had a lot to do of late.
Somebody said you'd been strangely neglectful of your business these last few months.
Somebody said wrong. These last few months I've been especially diligent.
There's nothing like active employment to console the afflicted. You look far from well. I could almost think you had some secret sorrow. There was a time I could have asked, Gilbert, and a time you would have told. What troubles you?
And the only thing troubling me is you standing in the door preventing me from going outside.
Rose! Eliza!
I'm off to the farm.
Now, here's a piece of news. It's about that sad Mrs. Graham, but maybe I shouldn't say. I would be sorry to injure anyone's feelings.
Well, speak out, Miss Eliza. You needn't fear to say anything in front of me. You don't usually show such consideration.
Well, perhaps you already know that her husband is not really dead, and she has run away from him.
Run away? She's not a widow?
Nothing like it.
I knew all this.
Then perhaps you also know that she's gone back, and that a perfect reconciliation has taken place.
She's returned to her husband?
She left Wildfell a few days ago.
Oh, Gilbert, where are you going?
Only think what a fool the man must be.
Lawrence! Lawrence! I've been to Wildfell. It was locked up. Is it true? Has she gone?
Come in. She went of her own accord. Mr. Huntingdon is dying. He wants to see his son.
Who betrayed her?
He wrote to me again.
And you told him where she was?
I detest the man as much as you. All I did was to inform her of his illness. I never intended her to go back. The first I knew of it was this letter.
Show me.
Mr. Huntingdon is very ill, but not dying. I found the house in sad confusion. Every decent servant has left, including Miss Myers. On the night of my arrival, he was lying in a kind of delirium.
Alice? Is that you?
It's Helen, Arthur. It's your wife?
My wife? Devil take her.
I went to him again the following morning. He was little better.
For God's sake. Not you again. With your pious eyes. I thought you'd gone.
Your conduct forced me to go. But there is no one else to care for you, and I shall not upbraid you now. You need not fear to trust me. Drink some water.
Where's my son?
Safe.
Is he here?
Wherever he is, you will not see him until you have promised to leave him under my protection. And to let me take him away if I should judge it necessary.
I swear, as God is in heaven, let me see him.
I cannot trust your oaths. I believed you once, and you always failed me. I must have a written agreement. We shall do it later when you are rested.
I want to see my son.
He was in such a state of feverish excitement, I thought it better to agree. But I was determined this time that my son's interest should not be forgotten. I read out the promise I wished him to make, and asked him to sign.
I can't hold the pen.
Then we must wait until you can.
But I'm too ill for this.
Then you are too ill to see Arthur. After several more attempts to evade it, at last he signed.
Now bring him here.
Arthur?
Go on, love.
Do you know me?
Yes.
Who am I?
Papa.
Are you glad to see me?
Mama.
Are you glad to see Papa?
You can answer, Arthur.
Yes.
You're not.
Mama.
You bitch. This is all you're doing.
That's all. You must leave now, Arthur.
You've made him forget me.
I did indeed wish him to forget the lessons you taught him. I seldom mention your name, but you have only yourself to blame for that.
Oh, this wretched thirst is burning my heart.
There.
Daddy, this is delightful, isn't it? You never hoped for such glorious opportunity.
Do you want me to stay? Or will you feel better if I go?
Oh, yes. You're wondrous, gentle and obliging. But you've driven me mad.
I'll leave you then. The doctor ordered him to be bled, and after that he was more tranquil. He accepted my services quietly, without any bitter remarks. But today, his ill nature has revived. There. Is that better?
Oh, this is sweet revenge for you. And you can enjoy it with such a quiet conscience, too, because it's all in the way of duty.
It is well for me that I am doing my duty, since that is the only comfort I have. And the satisfaction of my conscience seems the only reward I'm going to have.
Did you want any other reward?
I did hope to benefit you, to better your mind and alleviate your sufferings. But it appears I'm to do neither.
I ought to be melted into tears of penitence and admiration at the sight of so much generosity and superhuman goodness, but you see, I can't manage it. I have had a dreadful time. My old friends have all left me. Sometimes I thought I was dying.
There's always a chance of death.
Do you think that's happening to me? Huh?
I don't know. Are you prepared?
It's just the only thing I can't bear to think of.
But it must come sometime. And if it is years away, it will happen as certainly as if it happened today. So if there is anything you want to repent...
Oh, hang it! Don't torment me with your preachments now. I can't stand it. If you think I am in danger, save me.
From these details, you may form your own idea of the state of my patient and of my future prospects. I find myself in a strange position. I am exerting my utmost endeavours to promote the recovery of my husband. And if I succeed, what shall I do then?
I folded the letter carefully and returned it to Lawrence.
Well, what do you think?
That he doesn't deserve her.
But they are married. They have a child. She left him and no one would accept her. You heard what people said. Even you believed them. I warned you months ago and you wouldn't listen. Go home, Gilbert. Forget my sister.
Her letters to her brother continued, and out of pity perhaps for his friend, Lawrence continued to let me read.
Huntingdon is decidedly better, but very low from the effect of his illness. The doctor says he may be considered out of danger, so long as he observes the necessary restrictions. I watch and restrain him as well as I can. Sometimes I am bitterly abused for my severity.
Oh, this is water. What are you trying to do, woman? Poison me?
At other times, he depresses me with his abject self-abasement when he knows he has gone too far.
I'm dirt. I'm not worthy to look at you. I don't know why you don't leave me like everybody else.
But what annoys me most is his occasional attempt at affection, which I can neither credit nor return. I do not hate him. His suffering and my care for him have given him some claim to my regard. But if only he would be content to let things remain as they truly are.
Helen. What do you mean to do when I am well? Will you run away again?
It depends on your conduct.
Oh, I'll be very good.
But if I find it necessary to leave you, Arthur, this time I shall not run away. I have your written promise, remember? That I can go whenever I choose, and take my son, too.
Can you not forgive me?
I have forgiven you. But I know you cannot love me. And it's for the best because I cannot pretend to return it.
Is there someone else you love? I see.
Here, eat.
I used to be loved by so many. And now look at me. Stuck here with the coldest woman in the world. And grateful for the tiniest scrap of kindness she throws at me.
A further fortnight passed, and still there was no sign of Helen at Wildfell Hall.
Lawrence! You heard any more?
A little.
Well, how is she?
Whatever the nature of the friendship you two shared, it must be over. Here, you may as well read.
There has been a serious relapse in Huntingdon's illness, entirely caused by his refusal to give up stimulating drink.
I will not be treated like a baby. I should have been well long ago if it wasn't for you.
Drink.
Don't give me water. Give me wine.
It will make you worse.
It makes me better. You just want to keep me weak.
That is not true, and you know it.
A small glass.
There.
Don't add water. Oh, you're mighty attentive now. I suppose there's nothing you wouldn't do for me. Are you mighty attentive to him, too?
Do you mean our son?
I mean the man you love.
I'm willing to do anything I can to relieve you.
Yes. Now, my immaculate angel. But once you find yourself safe in heaven and me howling in hellfire, you'll not so much as dip the tip of your finger in water to cool my tongue.
You are determined that I shall not meet you in heaven.
And what should I do in heaven, I should like to know? It's all a fable. What is God? I can't see him or hear him.
Are you sure, Arthur? Are you quite sure?
It would be rather awkward to be sure. But I'm not going to die yet. I'm having such a fine time. Save me, Helen.
He looked into my face with such imploring eagerness. I could not speak for tears. As the days passed, his malady is fast increasing, and his horror of death is more distressing than his suffering of bodily pain. I hardly ever leave him, except to catch an hour or so of sleep when he is quiet. But even then the door is left ajar, so that he knows I am within call.
Helen! Helen!
There has been a sudden change.
It's gone. I feel better.
Are you sure? Let me feel your head.
Not so happy now I am recovering. Pour me wine.
No. Arthur, I am worried. I am worried this is a new stage.
I'm not getting better. That's the first time you've kissed me since you left.
In the last few hours, my worst fears have come true. There is no hope. No words can describe his anguish.
I don't want to die, Helen. Don't let go of my hand. Don't stop looking at me.
He keeps me night and day beside him. He is holding my left hand as I write.
You won't run back to him.
No.
I'm safe as long as you're here.
Will you let me send for the priest?
Oh, it's too late.
But if you repent...
I can't repent. I'm only afraid. I'm sorry that I wronged you, though. Out of all of them, you were kind.
He cannot linger long. He suffers dreadfully. He clings to me with an earnestness desperate to my soul, because I know I cannot help him.
Dying is so awful. I can't bear it. And when I'm buried, you'll return to your old ways and be as happy as ever as if I had never lived, while I'll be rotting in the ground. Pray for me, Helen.
I do. every hour and every minute, but you must pray for yourself, too.
I'm past that, my dear. I stopped loving myself years ago.
He has gone at last. I sat beside him all night, with my hand locked in his, watching the changes of his features and listening to his failing breath. No one can imagine the miseries of that deathbed. His body will be consigned on Thursday to the dark grave he so much dreaded.
It would be months before I heard of her again. We will turn now to a certain cold, cloudy afternoon at the beginning of December, when the first fall of snow lay thinly scattered over the blighted fields and frozen roads.
Gilbert!
I was returning to the farm when the once so bewitching Eliza Millward called me to her side.
I've a little bit of news, if you haven't heard it already. Do you know why Mr. Lawrence has gone away?
Is he gone?
So he hasn't told you about his sister?
What's happened now?
How you tremble, Gilbert. You still haven't forgotten her, I see. But you better had. Now that she's to be married.
Married? She can't. She wouldn't.
Oh, I only tell you what I heard. I did hear a name of the gentleman too, but I've forgotten. Perhaps you know. I believe it was someone who lived nearby.
Oh, Hargrave.
Hargrave, that's the one. I knew you'd remember. Look at you. So pale. Did you think you'd marry her yourself? You're a simple farmer, Gilbert Markham. You belong to the land. Why would she want you?
She could not marry Hargrave. For once, Eliza was right. Knowing me to be no more than a farmer, her brother had persuaded her I was false. If I did not get to Grassdale, even as she entered the church door, she and I might lament it to the latest moment of our lives. That night, there came a heavy fall of snow, which so delayed the progress of the coach I was almost driven to distraction. By the time I alighted near Grassdale, there was no post-chaise to be had. The distance was little more than 6 miles, but the road was new to me, and I often lost my way. As I approached the little rural church, a train of carriages stood outside. One was already leaving. I was too late. Forth came the bride and bridegroom. I grasped the gatepost for support. I did not wish to shock her with my presence, but I had not the power to move away.
Markham!
Lawrence?
What are you doing here?
Where's Helen?
Allow me to introduce my bride, Esther, late Miss Hargrave. She was a friend of my sister. Esther, this is my good friend, Gilbert Markham.
Mr. Markham?
Helen's not married.
Helen? No.
Where is she?
Well, she's just gone. She's on her way back to Grassdale. She leaves tomorrow for the continent. Where are you going?
Nowhere. Congratulations! Here, at last, stood the house I had imagined without ever seeing it. In my mind, I had seen every room. I had lived every inch of it through Helen's journal. And yet it was far bigger than I had ever pictured, far more beautiful. She was now mistress of all this. And who was I? What was I? I would leave at once. She should never know that I had come, that I loved her still. Her longed-for peace would not be broken by my presence. I moved, and then looked back, for one last view of Grassdale. A few steps more, and it would be over forever.
Mama! It's Mr. Markham! Stop! I want to see him!
While Arthur screamed to the footman to let him out, a hand was silently put forth from the carriage window. I knew that hand, though a black glove disguised its delicate whiteness.
Well, were you coming to see us? Or were you passing by?
I came to see the place. I'm going now.
Well, will you not come in?
I couldn't. I have business to attend to. Back at the farm, Mrs. Huntingdon.
Business.
Mr. Markham, do you remember me?
Very well, little man.
Haven't I grown?
You'll be as tall as me soon.
Tell me how you all are at home. Has anything happened since I left?
Nothing.
Nobody Dead?
No.
Nobody married?
No.
No old friends forgotten or supplanted?
Nobody's been forgotten.
Why won't you come with us? I can show you my house.
Show Mr. Markham how fast you are.
Mr. Markham, watch me!
He's growing up, Mrs. Huntingdon.
Gilbert, what's the matter? Why can't you call me Helen? Why are you so changed?
I haven't changed. I wish I had, but I'm the same.
Do you mean that you have the same regard for me that you had when we last met?
I do. But it would be wrong to talk of it now.
It was wrong to talk of it then. It would not be now. Unless it was no longer true.
Look at me, Mr. Markham!
How are you, Helen?
Getting better, Gilbert.
Would you give me your hand if I asked it? Helen? We were married on a glorious August morning. I need not tell you how happily my Helen and I lived and loved together, and how blessed we are in each other's society. We have Arthur, and we have children of our own. He calls me Gilbert. They call me Papa. I'm happy.